They could be playing it up.
Yeah, fair enough. And no Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson jumping out of explosions in this transcript, huh? But that's fine by me. This deep dive, we're going full detective mode.
Absolutely, getting into the nitty-gritty.
Exactly. So this character, Safe, he's leading this investigation. And just from the dialogue, the scene descriptions, man, it's intense. And, the mission for our listeners today, if they choose to accept it, let's really get a grip on who the players are in this whole thing.
Definitely.
We've got this figure, the hyena. He's also called the hunter, or sometimes the fisherman. And the stakes. Through the roof, brutal crimes, psychological games. We're going to break it all down.
Looking forward to it.
Me too. First thing that hit me, and I think it'll hit the listeners too, we're dropped right into this Egyptian law enforcement world. Boom. Right off the bat, we're introduced to, hold on,
Brigadier General Jalal. He's the Wiso Buchanj Oiska, the director of their counterterrorism unit. Big cheese.
Right. So already we're dealing with high-level stuff. And then there's Saif Pasha, clearly our main guy.
Oh, yeah, he's going to be important.
Yeah.
And then you've got this whole network of other figures. There's Usker Huch Tariq, Saif Uskofa Yusef, that's Major Meged El Azazi, and Secheda Hussein Awishosket, Captain Saif Abd El Rahman.
Wait, so there are two Saifs?
That's what it looks like. I'd say keep an ear out for that.
Yeah.
Could be significant. And then there's Naga, she's the sketch artist. Sees.
Gotcha. Okay, so even just from these names, we can tell this is a structured organization, like super hierarchical.
Very much so. You can feel that military influence.
Yeah.
And that's going to play a role in how this investigation unfolds. Guarantee it.
You think, okay, so then we have this killer everyone's after, the hyena, or as you said, say, the hunter or the fisherman, right?
Yep, in Arabic. I kind of like that it's not just one fixed name. Adds to the mystery.
Right. And we find out this is not some new case. This goes back 7 years. First victim 7 years ago. And Captain Saif Abd El Rahman, our main Saif, he was there from the beginning, practically a rookie.
Wow. So this case has been haunting him for a while.
Seems like it, yeah. And his analysis of that first crime scene, it's mentioned that the victim was Uyeyat, killed very skillfully. They say he was spot on. His analysis marked him as like a rising star, but no evidence, none at all. That's crazy to me.
It is chilling. I mean, think about it. To do something that violent and leave no trace, it implies either incredible planning, like forensics level awareness,
or even someone with specific training, right? Like they know how to make a crime scene or disappear.
Exactly. And that 7-year gap, it's not just time passing. It makes you wonder. Did the killer stop? Did they change how they do things so it's harder to connect the dots? Maybe they were somewhere else entirely. 7 years. That's a long time.
Makes catching them that much harder, right?
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, and this is a twist. It's about the original suspect. Sif, years ago, encountered this guy. He claims to have seen him die.
That's pretty definitive. Eyewitness testimony and all.
Right. But then another character, Yad, she suggests. Maybe it's a copycat.
Whoa.
Someone who learned from the original hyena or even worked with him, and suddenly you're back to square one, questioning everything.
That's fascinating, though, the copycat angle. Criminally, can someone really copy a killer's methods, their psychology?
Yeah, it's a bit unsettling, right? It means the threat. It might not have ended with the original guy. It also makes me wonder, procedurally, would the police have, written down all the details of the original hyena's crimes? Enough for someone to study? That's a good question. I mean, in theory, they would. But who knows how detailed those records might be.
Right. Okay, something else that's clear from this transcript. Politics. Lots of it. And the sense of corruption, under the surface. There's a discussion about authority, jurisdiction, not stepping on toes.
Yeah, typical bureaucratic stuff.
The Brigadier General Jalal, he's very focused on control. He even questions Saif's insights sometimes, warns him about outside involvement. Specifically mentions Sisi Su, Major General Sammy, as someone who could stir things up.
Sound like a turf war. Trying to keep things contained.
You think? So is it just about catching the killer, or is there something more to this whole power dynamic?
I mean, in the real world, those things often get intertwined. Internal politics can absolutely slow down an investigation.
Totally. And then there's the story about Hajj al-Wasiya's Brigadier General Mar. This is where it gets heavy. He thought he was close to identifying the hyena, shared some info with Saif, and then, tragically, Mar dies, supposedly a heart attack. But it happened the day after he told his superiors what he knew. Saif thinks it's not a coincidence.
It's all play.
He thinks someone within the system, someone Asacia, corrupt, is feeding information to the killer. This whole incident, it changes Safe. He learns a hard lesson. Don't talk, don't share until you have absolute proof.
Makes sense. He's been burned before. He can't trust anyone.
Right. And because of that, he starts doing his own thing.
Yeah.
His own investigation. Leads him to a psychiatrist. Cesar El Nagueri.
Interesting. Going the psychology route.
Yeah. And then he has his people look into another doctor, Cecile Onya. Dr. Mortada. Wants to know who he's talking to, checking phone records. Seems like Safe's figured something out. He thinks the hyena has some kind of psychological profile, maybe even a direct link to this whole psychiatry world. But another colleague, a guy named Sharif, Onya, he gets too close following this lead.
Don't tell me.
He ends up dead. Makes it very clear this investigation is deadly serious.
Wow. So Safe's right to be suspicious. The hyena knows what's going on, who's looking into him. He's either got eyes everywhere or he's just that paranoid.
Then we get this dialogue, super creepy, between someone called Safe's Saish, which means Her Majesty, and someone else. They're talking about Safe's sister. She's blind, and they see her as a way to hurt him.
That's cold.
It gets worse. They also mention a name, is Saifi, Negi El Khalili, and death. Like it's no big deal.
Her Majesty. I have a bad feeling about this. Sounds like someone with a lot of power, maybe pulling strings behind the hyena.
Yeah, seriously bad vibes. So things escalate. Dr. Mortada, the psychiatrist Saif was looking into, he ends up murdered. Saif gets called to the scene in Mortada's apartment. There's signs of a struggle, someone searching for something. Probably those files Saif was after.
So Mortada had something the hyena didn't want getting out. Makes sense.
Right. And Saif, he sees the same professional killer signature as the first murder, that arms dealer years ago. But get this, Saif had asked about Mortada's address just the day before, which of course makes his colleagues look at him sideways.
Oof, yeah, that's going to raise some eyebrows. Now he's a suspect in his own investigation.
Pretty much. But here's the clue. 3 patient files are missing from Mortada's place, and these files, they connect back to that other general, Fuiluruke, the one who died suspiciously.
So Mortada might have had information about the hyena that Mara was also looking into.
Exactly. And then Saif, he talks to the hospital orderly, the Sayuzi, and finds out. The day before Mortada was killed, he had a patient named Adam Kamal A. That's the first real name, a solid lead.
Finally, a name. That orderly, just by doing his job, he might have cracked this thing wide open. It's crazy how these small details can be so important.
Totally. And the orderly, he tells Saif even more. Turns out, Dr. Mortada, this psychiatrist, he was dealing drugs, the kind used for addiction.
What? So not such a respectable doctor after all.
Nope. Turns out he was pretty shady. And this dealing, plus those missing files about Maher's investigation, definitely connected. It's not just what Mortada knew about the hyena, it's his own criminal stuff too.
This is getting complex. Mortada's a victim, sure, but he wasn't exactly innocent.
Exactly. Now Saif has to report all this. His boss is the colonel, Sekim Shiab, and of course General Jalal is there too. You can feel the tension. The colonel doesn't really trust Saif's methods.
Typical. The maverick cop never gets the support he needs.
Right. But ultimately he lets Saif continue. Maybe pressure from above, or they just know Saif has a good track record. But it gets even more complicated because one of the other guys, Captain Tariq, Seixie, he's openly disrespectful to Major Maged, the kin Moot, and he even threatens Saif.
Yikes. Sounds like a hostile work environment. Poor Saif. Trying to catch a killer while dealing with all this internal drama.
And just when you think it can't get weirder, they find 3 patient files in Mortada's things. Identical files, but with different names. It's strange. Ibrahim Sami, Yasser Lafi, Sakina Sa, and Dawood Mahab, Iswingse, and the info on Ibrahim Sami, fake. And Dawood Mahab, he's been living in Austria for like 35 years. Someone's playing games with these names.
Definitely deliberate. Those fake details, it's like a cover-up. But why go through all that trouble with those names?
That's what Saif figures out. He's looking at these names and it hits him. They're not random. They're anagrams or parts of names, all connected to Dr. Mortada's family. His brother, uncle, cousin, even his son's dog.
No way. That's some Sherlock Holmes level deduction right there.
Right. So Sikis puts the pieces together and he gets the real name. Shay Ayad Salama.
Amazing. Talk about connecting the dots. So Mortada was hiding this guy's identity, but cleverly. If someone else found the files, they wouldn't suspect a thing.
And Saif's hunch pays off. Mortada, He recorded all his therapy sessions, including the ones with Iyad Salama. And guess what? Iyad Salama is the hyena. The doctor called him Kareem, Hayum. But these recordings, they go deep into Kareem's past, his whole life. He had a really messed up childhood, abusive father. He ended up killing his dad to protect his sister, then ran away.
Wow. Talk about a traumatic origin story. It's
Yep.
definitely not an excuse for what he becomes, but he gives some context to his violence, you know?
Yeah, definitely. But the investigation takes another turn. They find out when Kareem's father was murdered. It was the same day as another murder. A man named Jamal Abdelmajd Ustiu Malijik, and guess what? This guy was known to be abusive to his daughter. So now they have the real name. Usiwe Usianhulis. Mizen Gamal Abd El-Majd, the hyena. And it looks like he's been targeting abusers all this time, like a twisted kind of vigilante.
Man, that's intense. This goes beyond just a typical criminal. He's working
Yeah.
through his own trauma, but in the worst way possible.
Right. But the story gets even crazier. Mason's not just some small-time killer. Saif digs deeper, and he uncovers a whole criminal history. Started with petty stuff when he was a kid, on the run. Then he joined a local thug group, a Baltajia. Funny.
So he was already heading down a dark path.
Yeah. After that, he went solo for a bit, then moved to Jordan, got involved with a terrorist organization there, assassinations, bombings, even a hotel attack.
Whoa, this guy's escalating quickly.
And it doesn't stop there. He moves to Europe, becomes a major player in arms trafficking for the mafia. Multiple countries he was involved. And the crazy thing is, all these crimes, huge crimes, they were either unsolved or pinned on someone else. Mason's been a ghost this whole time.
He's like a chameleon blending in, moving up in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and leaving a trail of destruction wherever he goes.
And then it gets personal. Saif receives a gift, a human heart and a brand new knife. The hyena is sending a message. He knows he's being investigated, and he's not scared.
That's just chilling. Psychological warfare. He wants to break safe.
It brings back a lot of bad memories for Saif. He thinks about his wife and daughter, their murders. His whole reason for doing this, he wants revenge, Stacey. And this drive for revenge, it pushes him further. He starts keeping secrets from his own team, even destroys evidence. He has to be the one to catch the hyena, no one else.
That's dangerous. I get his motives, but going rogue like that, he could mess up the whole investigation.
Yeah, it's a tough call. He lays out his priorities. Stay ahead of everyone else, make sure the hyena doesn't vanish again, and find the corrupt guy in the administration. He knows someone's helping the killer.
It's like a three-dimensional chess game. He's got to play everyone. The killer, his own team, the corrupt officials.
Exactly. But then we get this new piece of information, the hyena's motive. It goes beyond his past trauma. There's a power struggle happening in the illegal arms trade in Egypt. Someone named Marjan Abdelaziz. He died, and it seems the hyena is taking over. He's selling these unusual older weapons, some military-grade stuff.
So he's not just a killer, he's a businessman, a very dangerous one.
Right. And this information, Saif uses it. It leads to the arrest of Bassem El-Awadi, S. Hetchashur. He's caught with a ton of weapons, the kind the hyena deals in. Saif sees an opportunity. He wants to interrogate Bassem.
Smart move. He's going after the supply chain.
Yeah. During the interrogation, Bassem makes a deal. He says he'll set up a meeting with the hyena if Saif lets him go.
Risky.
Oh, yeah. So Saif pretends to release Bassem, but really, he takes him to a hospital. Bassem's in bad shape, but only Saif and a few trusted people know he's actually dead. They want the hyena to think Bassem is cooperating.
Ooh, that's a high-stakes bluff.
No.
If the hyena sees through it.
Game over.
You know.
But Saif doesn't stop there. He contacts a journalist, Walid Abu Zaid Issasid, and has him publish a story about this dangerous criminal being caught, thanks to Captain Saif.
So he's using the media to his advantage, making it seem like he's dismantling the hyena's whole network.
Exactly, creating this illusion that everything's falling apart. But the transcript ends with these ominous lines. It's clear the hyena is watching, waiting. He knows what Saif is doing.
Cliffhanger. So is Saif walking into a trap? Or is he playing the hyena at his own game?
That's the question, right? So what do you think? We've got this whole web of crime, a really personal tragedy driving Saif, and then this corruption lurking in the shadows. It's a lot to take in.
It really makes you think. Saif, he's clearly a skilled investigator, but he's also driven by revenge. And the hyena, he's not just a serial killer, he's a mastermind. He's been one step ahead this whole time.
And what about the corruption? It's got to go deeper than just one guy. How much of the system is compromised? And what about that other general, Mar? Was he killed because he was getting too close?
Yeah, all these questions. And then there's the hyena himself. His whole psychology, the trauma that shaped him, those recordings with a psychiatrist, they're probably just the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. So as we leave our listeners to ponder all of this, here's the big question. Saif is walking into a confrontation. Can he trust anyone? Will his plan work? Or is he underestimating the hyena? This transcript, it feels like just the beginning of the story.
Definitely. And for our listeners, if you want to explore this further, I'd suggest looking into real-life cases of these international serial killers. There are some crazy stories out there. Or how law enforcement deals with organized crime,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to corruption within their own ranks.
That's a good point. And the whole psychology angle, trauma, violence, especially cases where a child kills their parent. There's a lot of research on that. Heavy stuff, but fascinating.
Absolutely.
So one final thought. The hyena, he's clearly got connections, power. Even if Saif wins this fight, can he really take down the whole network? Or will there always be this threat lurking in the shadows?
That's something to think about. Justice, revenge, sometimes they're not so clear-cut.
Well said.
Thank you.
Until next time, listeners.
Stay safe out there.